Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back to Soul Stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to join our family. Stay with us, because a new love story is about to begin. The wind carried whispers across the barren plains of Copper Creek, a town forgotten by progress and remembered only by those stubborn enough to remain. Clara Bennett stood at the window of the small cabin she had called prison for 7 years, watching dust devils spin across the hard-pan earth like restless spirits searching for escape. She understood their restlessness. She felt it in her bones every morning when she woke to the sound of Thomas Bennett's boots hitting the floorboard, heavy with intention, weighted with cruelty. Thomas had been charming once, back when Clara was 17 and foolish enough to believe that a man's smile could reveal his soul. He had ridden into her father's ranch with promises sweeter than summer honey, speaking of futures painted in gold and skies that stretched forever. Her father had warned her. He had seen something behind Thomas's easy grin, something cold and calculating that Clara's young heart had been too blind to recognize. But love, or what she mistook for love, had deafened her to wisdom. She married Thomas Bennett 3 months after meeting him, and within a year she understood the terrible mistake she had made. The first time he struck her, she blamed herself. The second time, she blamed the whiskey. By the 100th time, she had stopped counting and stopped hoping. Hope was a luxury she could not afford, not when every sunrise brought new reasons to fear, and every sunset offered no relief. Clara learned to walk softly, speak quietly, and disappear into the walls of her own home like a ghost haunting her own existence. She became invisible because invisibility meant survival. But then came Lily. Lily arrived on a spring morning when the desert bloomed unexpectedly with wildflowers, as if nature itself wanted to celebrate the birth of something pure into a world so tainted by pain. Clara held her daughter for the first time and felt something crack open inside her chest, something she thought Thomas had destroyed completely. Love rushed through her veins like wildfire, fierce and unstoppable, and she made a silent vow to protect this child from the darkness that surrounded them. Whatever it took, whatever she had to endure, Lily would know kindness. Lily would know safety. Lily would know that she was wanted. Thomas saw the child as property, another possession to control, another weapon to wield against Clara's defiance. He tolerated Lily when she was quiet, ignored her when she cried, and punished Clara for both. As Lily grew from infant to toddler to the bright-eyed 5-year-old who now hid beneath the kitchen table during her father's rages, Clara's desperation grew alongside her. She had to escape. She had to find a way out of this life before Thomas destroyed them both. The opportunity came disguised as tragedy. Thomas's gambling debts had finally caught up with him, and the men he owed money to were not patient or forgiving. He rode out one evening to meet them, leaving Clara with bruises on her arms and threats ringing in her ears. He would return by morning, he promised, and if supper was not waiting for him, she would regret it. She had heard such promises before. She had lived through such promises before. But something felt different that night, something electric and dangerous crackling through the air like lightning before a storm. Clara did not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the road, counting the hours until Thomas's return. Lily slept peacefully in the small bed they shared, unaware of the calculations running through her mother's mind. If Thomas did not return by dawn, Clara could run. She could take Lily and the few coins she had hidden beneath a loose floorboard and disappear into the vastness of the territory. She could start over somewhere, become someone new, someone free. But Thomas did return, though not in the way she expected. The sound of hooves approaching the cabin jolted Clara from her desperate planning. She pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding, waiting for the door to crash open and Thomas to stumble through with whiskey on his breath and violence in his hands. Instead, she heard a single knock, quiet and almost hesitant. followed by a voice she did not recognize. "Ma'am, anyone home?" Clara did not answer. Strange men at night meant danger, and she had learned to trust no one. But the voice came again, softer this time, carrying an unexpected gentleness that made her pause. "I don't mean any harm. Found a man on the road about 3 miles east. He's hurt bad. Said his wife lives here. Thomas. Something had happened to Thomas." Clara's hands trembled as she unlatched the door, opening it just enough to see the stranger standing on her porch. He was tall and lean, with shoulders that spoke of hard work and hands that hung loosely at his sides, unthreatening despite their obvious strength. His face was weathered by sun and wind, lines carved around his eyes and mouth that suggested a man who had smiled once, but had forgotten how. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and when his gaze met hers, she saw something unexpected in those gray depths. Recognition, not of her face, but of her fear. He knew what it meant to be afraid. "Is he alive?" Clara asked, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. The stranger hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything. "He's breathing. But the men he was meeting, they weren't friendly. He owes money to dangerous people, ma'am. They left him with a message, carved right into his chest. Said to tell his wife that the debt comes due next time, one way or another." Clara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Thomas would survive, and when he recovered, he would be angrier than ever. He would blame her for his misfortune, punish her for his mistakes, take out his humiliation on the only person he could control. The brief hope she had nursed throughout the night shattered like glass against stone. The stranger must have seen something change in her expression because he took a step forward, stopping just short of the threshold. "Ma'am, I don't know what your situation is here, and I ain't one to pry into another man's household. But I've seen fear like yours before. Saw it in my sister's eyes every time her husband came home drunk. Saw it in my mother's face when my father raised his hand." He paused, his jaw tightening with old pain. "I didn't help them when I should have. Didn't understand that staying silent made me as guilty as the man swinging his fists. My sister is buried now, put there by a man who claimed to love her. I won't make that mistake twice." Clara stared at him, unable to speak. No one had ever acknowledged her suffering so directly, so honestly. No one had ever offered help without expecting something in return. "Who are you?" she finally whispered. "Name's Eli Ward. Got a ranch about 10 miles north of here. Nothing fancy. Just a place I've been trying to build into something worthwhile. I was riding through when I found your husband on the road. Brought him to the doctor in town, but he'll be laid up for weeks, maybe longer." Eli's gaze drifted past her, into the small cabin where the flickering lamplight revealed sparse furniture and bare walls. His expression hardened when he noticed the marks on her arms, the bruises she had stopped trying to hide. "Those men who hurt him, they'll come back for their money, and when they do, they won't care who gets caught in the crossfire." Clara understood what he was saying without him needing to spell it out. Thomas's debts had made her home a target. Staying meant danger, not just from Thomas, but from the ruthless men who had nearly killed him. But leaving meant stepping into the unknown, abandoning everything familiar for a future she could not predict. "Mama." Lily's small voice came from behind her, sleepy and confused. Clara turned to see her daughter standing in the doorway of the bedroom, clutching the ragged doll that had been her constant companion since infancy. Lily's wide eyes moved from her mother to the stranger on the porch, and instead of fear, Clara saw curiosity. Children could sense things that adults overlooked. They knew instinctively who meant harm and who meant safety. Eli crouched down, bringing himself to Lily's level. "Hey there, little one. That's a mighty fine doll you got. She got a name?" Lily nodded shyly. "Rosie." "Rosie," Eli repeated, his voice softening in a way that transformed his weathered face. "That's a beautiful name for a beautiful doll. You take good care of her, don't you?" Lily nodded again, and the ghost of a smile flickered across her lips. It was the first smile Clara had seen on her daughter's face in weeks, and it cracked something open inside her that she had been trying desperately to keep closed. Clara made her decision in that moment, standing in the doorway between the life she knew and the life she feared, watching a stranger treat her daughter with more kindness than Thomas had ever shown. She did not know Eli Ward. She did not know if his offer was genuine or if she was trading one prison for another. But she knew that staying meant death, slow and painful, either by Thomas's hand or by the hands of the men he owed. She knew that her daughter deserved better than shadows and silence and fear. "We'll come with you," Clara said, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. "Tonight, right now, before Thomas wakes up and before those men come back. We'll come with you, and we'll figure out the rest later." Eli nodded, no surprise on his face, as if he had been expecting this answer all along. "Gather what you need. We ride in 10 minutes. Clara moved through the cabin like a woman possessed, stuffing clothes and the hidden coins and her mother's Bible into a worn leather bag. Lily watched with wide eyes, understanding on some instinctive level that their lives were changing forever. When Clara lifted her daughter onto the horse Eli had brought, Lily wrapped her small arms around her mother's waist and held on tight, trusting completely, believing absolutely that whatever came next would be better than what they were leaving behind. They rode through the night, the stars burning overhead like distant promises. Eli kept pace beside them, his presence steady and reassuring, a silent guardian against the darkness. Clara did not speak. Words felt inadequate to express the turmoil inside her, the mixture of terror and hope and grief and liberation that swirled through her veins. She was leaving behind everything she had known, including the woman she had been forced to become. She did not know who she would be when the sun rose, but she knew she would be free. Eli's ranch appeared at dawn, modest and weathered but solid, built by hands that understood the value of hard work and honest labor. He helped Clara down from the horse with a gentleness that made her eyes sting with unexpected tears. Lily had fallen asleep during the ride, and Eli carried her into the house, as if she weighed nothing, settling her onto a bed with quilts that smelled of lavender and sunshine. "You're safe here," Eli said quietly, standing in the doorway as Clara sat beside her sleeping daughter. "No one's going to hurt you, not while I'm breathing." Clara looked up at him, this stranger who had appeared from the darkness and offered salvation. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us." Eli was silent for a long moment, his gaze drifting toward the window where the first rays of sunlight were painting the desert gold. "Because I know what it means to watch someone you love suffer and do nothing. Because I spent years carrying the guilt of my silence, wondering if things would have been different, if I had been brave enough to act. Because some debts can't be repaid with money, only with action." He turned back to her, and something softened in his expression. "Because everyone deserves a chance to start over. Everyone deserves to be seen as more than someone else's property." Clara felt the tears spill down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. She had not cried in years. Crying had only made Thomas angrier, so she had learned to swallow her pain and hide her grief. But here, in this quiet house with this quiet man, she felt safe enough to break. Eli did not try to stop her tears or offer empty comfort. He simply sat down across the room, giving her space, letting her feel whatever she needed to feel without judgment or expectation. And in that silence, Clara began to understand that healing was possible, that the scars Thomas had left on her body and soul did not have to define her forever, that she and Lily could build something new from the ashes of their old life, something beautiful and strong and free. The months that followed were not easy. Clara struggled to trust Eli, even as he proved himself worthy of trust Aggie. Again and again. She flinched at sudden movements and startled at loud sounds, the echoes of Thomas's violence lingering long after she had escaped his reach. But Eli was patient. He gave her space when she needed it, and presence when she needed that instead. He taught Lily to ride horses and read books and believe in her own worth. He treated Clara like a partner, not a possession, asking her opinion and respecting her answers. And slowly, carefully, love grew between them like wildflowers in the desert, unexpected and resilient and beautiful. It was not the consuming fire of Clara's youth, but something deeper and steadier, a warmth that sustained rather than destroyed. Eli never pushed. He waited, letting Clara come to him in her own time, on her own terms. And when she finally did, when she finally let herself believe that happiness was possible, she discovered that the desert had given her exactly what she needed: a second chance at life, a family worth protecting, and a love strong enough to heal the deepest wounds.